Lee Camp, ladies and gentlemen.
What? I didn't know I was on.
I just threw you on, buddy. Just crazy style. Just mayhem in the streets. No laws anymore.
While I believe unsweetened cashew milk was my description of John Tesh, review of a John Tesh album, I think unsweetened organic macadamia nut milk is more like a boy band. It's like a 98 Degrees. I feel like that'd be the review of a 98 Degrees album.
That's a little more exciting than John Tesh. I'd go see 98 Degrees before I'd see Johnny T. I think honestly, when you said that, like, and I remember you said, I don't know who that offends more, John Tesh or the cashew milk people. I think a sternly written email was being drafted as you spoke from the cashew people saying, how dare you, Lee Camp? We have a well-respected, exciting brand of milks. Like,
and the letter we got from Tesh was written in blood. So that was pretty serious.
Yeah, Tesh went nuts on us. He threatened to get us, and he put us on a list, and we all have to have special Tesh security guards. It's been crazy ever since that. We're on Tesh alert.
Speaking of people going nuts, I have a little show and tell here for you. This is my Countdown with Keith Olbermann mug.
What?
I was on Countdown one time in, like, I don't know, 2010 maybe, and it was before I was already going, after Obama from the left, but I think it was before I was kind of really criticizing capitalism and stuff, the stuff that'll really get you. Like, they would allow a complaint against Obama here and there, but you can't really go at the heart of the empire. And so I was a little more allowable, and he had not gone full fucking Nurse Ratched. He hadn't gone full maniac. So both of us have changed a little, since those days, but now he literally just does online videos where he's fucking frothing at the mouth about Russiagate.
He's like literally one of those people where I go, like, in all seriousness, does he have a brain tumor or something? Like, is he okay? Like, what happened? Like, it was so
funny you mentioned that. I remember hearing there's something with him that fucks with his vision, which is why he's never driven. Like, he's never driven a car. And so maybe it's a tumor. To get real.
Wow. Could be. It could be. I mean, I heard he lives with his mom. I don't know any of this is true, but it's like, some of these guys, it's just like, man, have you been late in a while? Like,
it was Trump derangements. It really was a parasite that got in their heads. I mean, they're all wrong now too. So
right.
I do get the Trump derangement syndrome is a good thing to call people who are left, like independent media, who fell for the Trump Russiagate garbage. Right. But it's not a good thing to call like MSNBC. I mean, they're always deranged. They're always fucking idiots.
Right. They're just pushing the nonstop nonsense. But ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Government Secrets with Lee Camp and Graham Elwood. Lee Camp has a countdown to Keith Olbermann mug.
He's still hanging on to it after all those years.
I would if I ever met Keith Olbermann, I think I would just talk sports with him, because I remember him from Sports Center, and I'd be like, oh man, what do you think about all these trades in baseball that just happened? By the way, my Cubs have been completely gutted, and I'm really angry.
And you're a little dead inside.
I am a little dead inside. They traded everybody, Rizzo, Baez, and Chris Bryant. What are you doing? That's what happens if Theo Epstein leaves. Anyway.
Wait, so there's an Epstein you like?
Yes. Theo Epstein that came and brought a championship to the Cubs. I love that man. Him and Joe Madden. I will forever bow at their feet. Yeah, but he left last year, and now there's the new front office guy. And it just feels like the Cub teams that I grew up watching in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s that just always were bad, wouldn't spend money on any good players. Anyway, that's not why people tune into Government Secrets. Is they bitch about the fucking Cubs. There's no way.
I was wondering how long we'd go off on that track. Whether we pulled the string and we were in for the ride. You know, you can't. Once you pull the string, you're gonna get the full conversation.
And like, you're not even really a sports guy, so there's like no one that wants to hear this right now. So it's really me just talking into a camera for no good reason, which is the crux of my show.
I do have some fascination with the Olympics because, you know, the idea that these people change their entire lives for like these 12 seconds is just, it's uniquely fascinating. And the idea that we all care, and I seem to care too. I'll watch these things and find myself being like, come on, you can do it, you can do it. But the idea that we all care just for this week, and then these athletes all go back and train endlessly and swim in the world championships or whatever, or play the handball games around the world, and no one cares. No one cares.
I know. I'm always fascinated by the Olympics of just the precision of it. Like somebody moved their backstroke, they moved their hand like a half an inch, and that cost them a tenth of a second, and that's why they got the bronze. Or what, like that kind of stuff is fascinating to me, how much they train.
Yeah. Like, for example, the announcer yesterday, he's talking about reaction times to the gun or the start sound on the blocks. And he goes, and in 1 second, he's like, well, his reaction time is 0.50. That's pretty good. That is quite an impressive reaction. So half a second. And then he goes, the other guy goes, now, his reaction time is 0.81. I'm pretty sure my grandpa could do that. So we're talking about a difference of like a less than a third of a second or whatever.
Your grandpa. Like the other thing too, it's hard. And I really noticed this watching the Rio Olympics in 2016. And I was so getting just done with America. I mean, just watching Bernie getting screwed. And then literally I'm like, really, I got to choose between Trump and Hillary that whole summer. And you watch the American feed of the Olympics is all just like America crushes, and just like the women's soccer team beat a bunch of poor peasants from Istanbul 9-0. Like, oh yeah, like it's
they literally have technology in their cleats that could fund the nation's water supply or whatever.
I know, it's like all these suburban girls that grew up at their training facilities are better than anyone in that country is living. Like the royal family isn't living as well as your training facilities. And it's like, I remember I found some of it on, I went online and watched some of the other, you could dig around online and find, and they were like, oh, it's not just every American. It's like, oh, Australia's playing Thailand. Cool. And I don't have to hear this like America's big, thick boot in everyone's ass. I don't want to, it's hard to give a shit. And I respect these athletes, but just the
well, it's all toxic nationalism, a lot of it, but it is much worse when you're rooting for the empire. I mean, when you're rooting for the people that have all the money and all the opportunity to just do nothing but train for this, versus the guy who his training consisted of running 5 miles to go pick up the water for his town.
Yeah. And does Yemen have any athletes in the games? Oh no, we've blown the shit out of their country, so they can't compete in anything. How come Afghanistan does it? I mean, all these countries that literally the 20 years we've spent in Afghanistan, what if we went in there with money to rebuild infrastructure and said, we're going to fund sports to help bring this nation of tribes together to get behind athletes? That's actually, they could have done that. They could have got a soccer team, put money behind a soccer team, and that would have helped unify the country. I was in Iraq when the Iraqi national soccer team, this isn't probably 2000, I forget what year it was, either 9.
Well, you have at least 20 years to choose from.
Yeah, so I was in Iraq 2009 or 10 or something like that, or maybe 11. And the Iraq had finally had a soccer team, and they were competing in the Asia Cup. And they had like advanced a couple rounds and the whole country was on board with it. Like the game was on and everywhere you went. And I was like, see, you could actually use sports as a good thing rather than just selling Coca-Cola and Nike and jamming nationalism. You can use what sports should be and what the Olympics should be, which is like this camaraderie and we're all coming together and it's just a game. We're celebrating each other. And I'm like, you could have done that in Iraq and Afghanistan. They could have done that. The United States could have helped fund that, which would have like given people jobs rather than the choice of like, well, be an interpreter for the American empire or work for the Taliban or whatever. Like those are the only choices, or work in the poppy fields in Afghanistan. And it's again, such a blown opportunity by this bloated, stupid rat fuck of a hellhole empire. But welcome to the show, everybody. It's a neighborly day in here.
Yeah. And something I talked about on my other podcast, Common Censored, I talked about how like the Olympics, a lot of it does do American propaganda. I mean, there's plenty of American propaganda, but some of it kind of unintentionally, I mean, they can't really help but do it, upend some of that propaganda in that it's just about like the only time I can think of where we see like average, I guess they're above average, but you know, regular Chinese people or on our television or regular Russian athletes. Just you're watching them and you're watching them cry when they win or they lose, and you're seeing them as human beings. And that is the only time that our mainstream media will show you people in these countries being human beings. Because in order to get you to believe the garbage propaganda that every country is their leader that we despise and want to kill, you have to basically never see them on your screen. You have to basically not relate to them.
Yeah. And that's what the Olympics are supposed to be, actually, is like, oh, and that's the thing. One of the things that I always loved as a kid watching the Olympics is like, usually I remember one of the years of the Olympics, the last day of the Olympics, when they came back into the arena and all the athletes were hanging out with each other, intermingling amongst countries, and they were exchanging flags and uniforms, and they didn't want to leave. And it was like, oh,
we could be doing this all the time.
Wow, this could be the world we live in, where we just like, hey, we're going to have a cool competition and celebrate. And because the athletes, they're all hanging out together. Like if I was I always wanted to perform in the Olympics. I was an athlete. I never was good enough to do any of these things. And I was like, how cool it would have been to like, oh, now I'm lifelong friends with a guy from the Czech bobsled team or what, you know what I mean? Like
yeah. Because we both devoted ourselves to this craft or whatever, you know? So.
Yeah. And we know what it's like to train. And there's this common ground of, oh, dude, we had to train. And oh man, at the time trials, this, and oh, my family. That's the thing that you said, the camera show, like, oh, there's the family. There's the Russian guy's family. There's his wife crying, or the Russian woman's, you know, mom, dad, or husband, or kids come, like all this, like, oh, they're human. They're not just, oh, I thought they all just wore Kill America shirts, and because Putin drilled that into their head. And it's like, it's again, such a missed opportunity in how America really could be the America that people think it is or want it to be, the good guys, and help everybody and bring everybody together. We could be doing that.
Yeah,
we could be
and it's not just a missed opportunity. It's by design. You know, they don't want that stuff. And many times going into these Olympics or like going into the World Cup, they'll create some sort of propaganda storm so that going into these games, you don't get a chance to really relate to these people because you're so caught up in well, fuck Russia. They want to make sure there's a strong fuck Russia or fuck China going into these games.
Yeah, so that we get to root for them and chant USA. Like they're already trying to push it with the doping and the Russians. You know what I mean? Like, did the Russians dope? Yeah, I'm sure they did. But so does our, so is everybody. I mean, look at Lance Armstrong, who raced for the United States Post Office. Like, like you want to eradicate that, fine, but don't like
some
demonize.
Of the best dopers in history were American. I'll have you know. Okay.
Yes. The best,
like the best, like the fucking best. Whatever, 7 Tour de France's. Okay, this was no low level doping. These are the good ones. These guys are experts,
and an expert at like cheating and circumventing the tests or whatever he did. Like,
Oh, you're one of those anti-doping people, aren't you, Graham? God damn it.
Fuck. You're pro-doping. Well, we should, before we get into this, first of all, hit the like button, ladies and gentlemen. Like, share, and subscribe. Tell everybody about Government Secrets. We should let everybody know we have a live show September 18th in Los Angeles at the Dynasty Typewriter.
Damn straight. First live Government Secrets. If it goes poorly, last live Government Secrets.
So, and we should let everybody know this is the theater's policy. It's on their website when you click the ticket link. Since this has riled some people up, there's a small, loud fuckhead minority online that I'm not backing down from, and I hope you leave me as fans because I find you to be fucking stupid. Was that subtle enough? Is the theater, the Dynasty Typewriter, they have a bunch of policies. One of them is you have to show up either proof of vaccination or a test, which means they're not forcing the vaccine on you. If I know you already checked out and flipped out because you heard the word vaccine and you don't like listening to or test, those are their policies, not ours. That's their policy. If you don't do those things, you have a third choice, which is don't come to the show. They also have a lot of other draconian deep state rules, like you can't show up naked. You got to wear clothes. You can't smoke cigarettes. You can't shit on the floor. You can't park your car in the lobby of the theater. So,
damn it, Graham. If you were a true revolutionary, you would work at places where you can shit on the floor.
Yes.
Come on. Choose your venues wisely.
I know. I'm so mad as a comedian who never smokes that they got rid of smoking when I was a young comedian in all the comedy clubs when I started in the late 80s and 90s, because I really wanted to get lung cancer from secondhand smoke because some selfish, filthy fucking smoker was putting their diseased maggot fucking shit into my lungs. I'm so bummed I don't have the choice to die from your filthy habit. Oh man, the government came in and said, no, this is unhealthy for comedians, performers, and wait staff. And they brought that big law down.
Yeah, it's amazing that people don't understand. Like these venues, almost all of them have these policies because they don't want to fucking deal with the either the lawsuits or the media coverage of like outbreak coming from Dynasty Typewriter or whatever. Right. Like it's not really that big a surprise, folks. And the other thing, talking about the when they were saying like, you know, in the heart of the pandemic, when they were like, hey, everybody should wear a mask. And the people running around being like, what are you going to do? The government's making us wear a mask. And I'm like, you know, I've never heard anybody be like, the government's telling me to drive on the right side of the road. Fuck them. I'm not a fucking sheep cuck. It's like... Look at all these sheep just standing at a red light. It's my right to go through an intersection red light
and run over someone in it with a baby carriage. That's my right.
They also tend to be the ones that were like that. Also tended to be the ones who like at TSA like salute and drop their pants and love TSA. You know, they seem to have no problem with a guy up their rectum searching for bombs. That's not an issue, but
that's totally cool. Like. Yeah. And it's like, so when you come to the venue, there's going to be all these government mandates. Like there's going to be a bunch of stop signs you're going to have to stop at on the way to the venue. There's going to be the government mandated seatbelt, which is a law. If you don't, you can get a ticket. And oh my God, you know, some people have died wearing seatbelts. Ugh, and you know, you can't just.
Well, I assume that means they died because of the seatbelt.
Yes. So the seatbelts murdered a small percentage of people. So we should outlaw seatbelts. Absolutely correct. Good reaction. Fantastic. By the way, it's 18. I think it's 18 and older at that club. So now they're Dynasty Typewriters trying to tell you how to parent your children. So it's really just a fucking avalanche of totalitarianism at our live shows. So, you know, I like to use all natural methods for my heal. I don't like taking prescriptions, but every once in a while I've had to, which means I've sold out to Big Pharma. So it's pretty ridiculous. So come to the sellout tour. And by the way, since some people were
planning on wearing clothes that were made by someone. So I think that makes me a sellout.
You're a sellout for starters. I mean, so it's just preposterous. I can't whip my dick out in the middle of the show and whack off, which you're denying my sexuality, which I'm really offended at that.
Legitimately, 5 people just canceled their tickets, Graham. So could you not mention you won't be doing the whack-off bit?
Maybe during the meet and greet. And yeah, and then Ron and I have this big tour in October, which all the tickets are at grahamelwood.com. And people who are like, you're authoritarian, first of all, don't come to the show. You have a choice. I'm not forcing a vaccine on you. You cannot come. And also, if there is a COVID outbreak at one of these venues and Ron and I have to then quarantine in a hotel in the middle of the country for 10 days and cancel tour dates, will you reimburse us? Nutbag Online? Some guy in Germany telling me what to do with my fucking tour in America? Will you reimburse me for the thousands of dollars in canceled tour dates? Oh, you won't. Then go fuck yourself. I hope this clears it up. I hope this clears it up.
I think you should just save this clip, Graham, and just send it to anybody who comments. Here's all of the things you need to know.
Here's what you need to know. And remember, shut the fuck up. All
right. So we've gotten the phone call portion of our podcast out of the way. Time to get to the government secrets.
Government secrets. First segment. This is actually, dare I say, an update.
In many ways, it's an update. So we're going to do the assassination of Malcolm X, which we have done before. I believe it was episode 30. And you can go back and listen to that one if you'd like. I have a lot of more information, and I feel like I didn't do it justice last time. So I think that you guys are going to...
It's probably just what the FBI
yeah,
and everything's cool.
They didn't do it justice either. But...
He died of a heart attack. It's all a big mix-up.
Yeah, the episode 30 was just about how Malcolm X has just been working too hard and he collapsed. And it was really sad. It's really sad.
Yeah. So get your cholesterol checked, guys. That's really the point of this story. That's what the FBI is trying to get out there.
But so I want to go through a lot more information. And, if you feel like you've already heard the first portion of this, then feel free to fast forward. But I definitely think there's some stuff you want to know, because this, more so than last time, we'll be getting into like the government involvement and who ordered the killing of Malcolm X, as opposed to I'll go through the other stuff as well. But this also goes beyond, because most of the information from the last one was from the Netflix series, which is pretty excellent. I mean, I wouldn't say it's bad. But I think it leaves off at a point that should really be it leaves off where like chapter 2 should begin, about what really went down that day. So,
okay.
So on February 21st, 1965 at 3 p.m., Malcolm X was gunned down at and this is coming from Covert Action magazine, gunned down at the Audubon Ballroom on Broadway, 166th Street in Manhattan, while delivering a speech to an audience of 400 people. So you'd think with 400 people, maybe a couple might have seen who did it. When Malcolm began his speech at the Audubon, a man's voice drowned him out by shouting in the middle of the ballroom, "Man, get your hands out of my pocket!" And his head turned to see what the commotion was about. Someone threw like a smoke bomb type thing that started filling the room with smoke. And as that was going, as everyone's attention was distracted, a man stood up in the fourth row with a sawed-off shotgun and fired point blank. Well, that's not point blank. That's weird. Point blank would be up against him, and fired into Malcolm's chest. 2 men in the front row further jumped up with pistols in their hands and took aim at Malcolm and shot at him like a firing squad. Talmadge Hare, Hayer, 22, of Patterson, New Jersey, was shot in the leg, allegedly by Malcolm's secretary. He was subsequently trapped by a mob and almost torn apart before he was arrested by police officers who happened to be cruising the neighborhood. Hare served 44 years in prison before his release in 2010, at which time he claimed to have deep regrets about the involvement in Malcolm's murder. So Hare is the one who was definite. The other two, and this part I did cover in the last one, the other two that were convicted were definitely completely innocent. They weren't even there that day. The 2 other men convicted for Malcolm's murder, Thomas Johnson and Norman Butler, 30 and 26, each spent 20 years in prison. At the trial, even Hare told the court that Johnson and Butler had nothing to do with Malcolm's killing and that he didn't even know them. So the cops just picked up 2 other Nation of Islam guys that they could pin it on. And this already leads you to believe that the cops were somehow involved, because why would they feel the need to pick up extra patsies if they weren't involved?
Well, you always want to back up Patsy. I mean, this is the thing we've talked about. You know what I mean? It's like you'd only get one fire extinguisher. You have a couple in your house. You just always have a backup Patsy. I keep one in the trunk of my car with my disaster supplies. So, like, I always have a backup Patsy just in case.
Hey, can you picture the NYPD cops? Like, we weren't even involved in this. Isn't this crazy? Malcolm X got killed. We had nothing to do with it. You know what? Let's have something to do. Let's go ahead and pick up some guys. We'll frame them for the killing. Just cause. I know we weren't involved. I know, but just cause. It's what we do, right? It gives us practice for future framings.
Yeah, it's like I mean, when we covered the JFK thing, there was 10 guys running around saying, "I'm Lee Harvey Oswald. I'm crazy. I don't like JFK. I love Russia," or whatever. So, I mean, it stands to reason that's the same thing. You got a couple of patsies running around. You always have a backup patsy. It's like, even in this digital age, where you're paying with credit cards and Apple Pay or whatever, you should always have a couple bucks in your pocket, your cash. You know what I mean? Just man to man.
I have a couple of dollars. I had a backup patsy in high school, but that was just the sister of a girl I was dating. So,
who's that girl? Oh, that's my backup patsy.
Yeah, you can't. You know what? You can't. It turns out I learned this the hard way. You can't call her that in front of Patsy.
Oh, when you're dating a girl named Patsy, you're like, "That's my backup Patsy."
Yeah. Don't say it in front of her. She doesn't like it.
Okay, cool. I didn't realize that.
I think that's universal among Patsies. So according to So Hare goes on to give the names of the 4 men who he said actually were his accomplices, as part of an affidavit. And the famed attorney Kunstler received those names. The 4 men Hare identified were part of the Nation of Islam's Newark, New Jersey, Temple 25. This is a lot of what the Netflix series gets into. According to Hare, a man he knew as Wilbur or Kinley, later identified as Wilbur McKinley, shouted and threw the smoke bomb. A man named Willie, later identified as William Bradley, a.k.a. Al Mustafa Shabazz, 28 at the time, a stick-up man, had a shotgun and was the first to fire on Malcolm X after the diversion. Hare asserted that Bradley and a man named Lee or Leon, later identified as Leon Davis, both armed with pistols, fired on Malcolm X immediately after the shotgun blast. Hare also said that a man named Ben, later identified as Benjamin Thomas, was involved in the conspiracy. The Netflix series focused heavily on Shabazz, who he died in when they were making the documentary. He died in 2017. But he had become a beloved member of Newark, New Jersey, so much so that Cory Booker featured him in an ad for president, or a campaign. I don't know if it was for president, but a campaign ad in New Jersey shows Shabazz as this community leader. He owned a gym. And so this guy became beloved, even though he was without a doubt one of the main people that killed Malcolm X.
And the police never picked this guy up ever.
So, yeah, the police never did shit to investigate this killing. And we're going to get into some of that in a second. Days before his assassination, Malcolm's home in Queens had been firebombed, yet there was no police detail supplied to the Autobahn when he was murdered. An exception was Patrolman Gilbert Henry, who was told to conceal himself some distance from the main auditorium where Malcolm spoke. So they had basically no one there, and because they didn't want anyone possibly in a position to stop what was going to happen. Henry testified that he had been told to stay where he could not be seen and communicate by walkie-talkie with police detail concealed across the street. On the day of the shooting, journalist Jimmy Breslin was a famed New York City journalist, and weirdly, he in his later years was married to my great aunt, so I knew him a little. But
wait, what?
Yeah, I knew Jimmy Breslin.
What are you, Forrest Gump? You got all this shit tied into history, man. You're like, what? What are you talking about?
I think my other house married the star of Bonanza, Pernell Roberts. It's all very bizarre.
So I guess we need to do a government secrets on the CIA using Bonanza as some sort of group thing, like 1 for the 2 for the 3 for the 4 Bonanza.
So, but I will tell you this: if Jimmy Breslin said this, he can be trusted. Like, he didn't fuck around with making shit up like this. On the day of the shooting, journalist Jimmy Breslin received a tip from the NYPD that he should go to the Audubon Ballroom where Malcolm X was speaking, indicating someone in the NYPD knew what would transpire. So they knew to give him this tip to go. I don't know whether he went or not. It doesn't say, but they knew to give him this tip to go there. They wanted this to be documented, but they didn't want to have any cops around. When the police arrived at the scene after Malcolm had been shot, according to eyewitnesses, they displayed no sense of urgency. It was as if they wanted it to happen, Malcolm's death. Afterwards, the NYPD did not secure the scene of the crime as they normally would. I think I mentioned this on the last one. A dance at the Audubon went on as scheduled at 7 p.m. a few hours later. Like, literally, there's still chairs. There's still blood on the floor. There are bullet holes in the wall, and they had a big dance.
Wow. Well, that's the best way to gather evidence, Lee, is just to have a bunch of people dance around and contaminate a crime scene. I mean, that's really, if you've ever watched any one of those detective shows, they're always like, before we get the CSI guys in here, let's have a dance. Let's get the sock hop going.
Is there a sock hop nearby? Maybe a Sadie Hawkins? We could bring everybody in here and just, because that always, usually the dancers will kick up some good evidence, we find.
That's like the lead investigator. I want this area sealed off. I want a sock hop brought in now. I want this. I want a CSI team on site, but after the sock hop.
What part of sock hop now did you not understand?
Patrolman, where is the DJ? What is going on? I needed a DJ here yesterday.
What among the kids that were like this, like 19-year-olds being like, why are there bullet holes in the wall?
Yeah.
Why? I'm sticking to blood puddles on the floor. Is that part of the theme? Yeah. The theme is gruesome death. It's
the theme is assassinating black leaders. That's the theme of this. And it's just like, why is everyone crying outside? No, don't worry about it, kids. Just dance around. Make sure if you see any footprints or thumbprints, make sure you just mix those up with everybody. And
if you find any spent firearms or bullet cases, just take those home with you, honestly.
Yeah, it's like a souvenir.
It's souvenir to remember this night. Enchantment Under the Sea and Assassination Night.
It's like the cops just like, well, you guys need security for this event because Malcolm's a high profile figure. We're going to hang about across the street. We're just going to not be there. It's like the guys that walked. We talked about this Lee Harvey Oswald out one time and he wasn't hit. And then, well, we'll walk him out again. Those cops are like kind of holding.
Where Ruby failed to shoot him. So they just kept parading him back and forth in front of Ruby.
Just like when Ruby shows up, the guy's like, well, there you go. Like,
hey.
Here he is.
Yeah, I think if you watch the footage on slow-mo, you can see them lean away before it even happens.
Yeah, they just like, ooh, here comes Ruby right on cue.
Like, why is that cop's head out of the screen? So it's insane, but you want to get a little more insane?
No.
And not only did they allow a dance to go on, but someone like investigating for a documentary or something went into the Audubon Ballroom and was looking around in the 1990s. They went down into the basement and they found the podium there with bullet holes in it. In the 90s, no one had ever collected the bullet-riddled podium to maybe see what kind of bullets were fired, what angle, from where. Still sitting in the basement. You know, the janitor's like, well, I was going to get to that. I kept thinking I need to deal with that podium.
Look, NYPD's back. They got a 30-year backlog of
of podiums of black leaders.
Of podiums of black leaders that are providing hard evidence on a murder. Yeah, it's funny. NYPD just every time they're discussed, it's always like they've done such a fantastic job.
Yeah, they're amazing. They're just wonderful. By never taking a serious interest in investigating Malcolm's death, white-run institutions and law enforcement agencies sent the message that they did not value what his life represented. Very clear. FBI, and I'm not even going to get into the garbage media that was printed afterwards, talking about, well, like Time Magazine, New York Times, all of them ran with articles about how much hatred Malcolm X was filled with, and so it came back to bite him. They were right. They basically were like cheering it on, like, well, this is what, if you're a thug, this is what happens to you.
Live by the sword, die by the sword. Wait a minute now.
Yeah, his hatred against a completely racist fucking system that has destroyed countless lives. That's wrong. He should have been joyful and happy, really.
Yeah, should have just been grateful for what they gave him.
The FBI at the time, under its infamous COINTELPRO, which stands for Counterintelligence Program, which we've talked about many times, was promoting a war within the Nation of Islam in an attempt to destroy the organization, fearing that Malcolm was a black messiah who would lead a social revolution. And so this, I'm not going to get into the details of that feud in the Nation of Islam. Clearly, some of it was legitimate. Malcolm X being upset with Elijah Muhammad, and he was living a very rich life. He's driving around in limos. He's got many girlfriends, and to Malcolm X, it just very much seemed like he was a fraud. Eventually, at first, he very much revered him, but I want to add this. This
is one of the things that I've always found so impressive about Malcolm X. I read the biography, the book of him in the 90s. And it was the thing that I gave him such credit for. He was so devout in his religion that this guy that he revered, when he found out this guy that he revered that was the head of the Nation of Islam was not living by the Muslim law. He was, like I said, sleeping with girlfriends and his secretaries and living off high off the hog. He was like, this ain't right. And he was so firm in his principles that he left this thing that changed his life. I mean, finding Islam is like the most profound moment in Malcolm X's life. It seems like it's, and that for him to have that is like, shows the integrity of the man. And I also believe that both of these things can exist at the same time, where yes, Elijah Muhammad did these things. Yes, it was legitimate that Malcolm X was like, hey man, you're not living by our laws. And I'm offended and I'm out of here. And I'm sure the FBI also had people in there mixing it up, making it worse.
Yeah, so I think they would have had a maybe disgruntled but peaceful shift into Malcolm X not being with the Nation of Islam anymore, if it weren't for the fact that meanwhile you had COINTELPRO feeding info to the Nation of Islam about how Malcolm X wanted to destroy them and all this stuff, and you had people feeding info to Malcolm X about Elijah Muhammad trying to kill him, and I think that just ramped everything up to a level where it did get dangerous. I mean, obviously, with at least Hare and possibly some of the others involved, these were Nation of Islam members that actually fired the gun. So in order to talk them into being willing to do that, you had to kind of ramp up that rift between him and the Nation of Islam in order to make him so hated that killing him seemed to make sense.
Yeah.
But that being said, there's a lot. It's like, even if that were the only involvement of the FBI and police enforcement, that would still be too much. Like, they still are responsible for Malcolm X's death, even if that were it. But instead, there's a lot more to their involvement.
Yeah.
On the day Malcolm was killed, the FBI had 9 informants in the Audubon ballroom that we know of. During his travels to the Middle East and Africa, CIA agents followed Malcolm's every move. So, well, let me finish the sentence. Boarding every flight he took, watching his hotels, keeping him under surveillance during mealtime, and allegedly trying to poison him twice. But what this speaks to is that there is no way in hell that with all of this going down, they didn't know it was going to go down. So
Right.
at the very least, they were sitting there watching it, watching the assassins come in, watching to make sure the NYPD wasn't around, watching to make sure it all went according to plan, making sure that if he survived the initial bullet wounds, that they would take him to a hospital where they could finish the job. Like, there's no way they didn't know all of this was going down, considering they followed his every fucking footstep.
Yeah, I mean, this was coordinated. I mean, honestly, some of this reads of like how the crazy things we tried to do with Fidel Castro that I think we talked about on last week's episode of the week before.
They never gave Malcolm X a scuba suit, so an infected scuba suit.
Yeah, because they couldn't really get inside of Castro's, inner circle. They had to give him a scuba suit, so they got inside. But I mean, God, it's just like, he's followed and tracked and targeted like some foreign adversary. Like he's an American citizen that's just like, this system isn't fair. It's not fair. There's black people living in abject poverty. It is an unfair, racist system, and I want change. And they target him. Like, just change. Just help people. Like, how we don't have to go through all of this fucking fighty dumb bullshit if you're just like not such a greedy asshole. It's so simple.
I think you summed it up well.
Yeah.
So now we get into the stuff I didn't get into in the last one. The mysterious second shooter. On the day of Malcolm's, yes, just like Kennedy, mysterious second shooter. On the day of Malcolm's killing, the early edition, both from the New York Times and the New York Herald Tribune, reported that the NYPD had apprehended 2 suspects. Now, keep in mind, so the 3 people that were ultimately imprisoned, 2 of them were not arrested the day of, and in fact, were not even there. So how could they be arrested the day of? So the only one arrested the day of was Hare, and he'd been shot. And he said that the other 2 had nothing to do with it. So according to that theory, or the official statements that came later, there was only one arrest that day. It was just Hare. But both the New York Times and the New York Herald Tribune said the NYPD had 2 suspects. Later editions of both papers, however, changed their headlines and reported that only one suspect, Hare, was apprehended. Many believe that the assailant was a Bossi, B-O-S-S-I, which stands for Bureau of Special Services and Investigation agent, which was Bossi, had been modeled after the FBI and spent decades infiltrating left-wing and other radical political organizations and spying on New Yorkers. So Bossi was like a smaller FBI running around.
Yeah, like a local mom and pop FBI.
Sometimes you don't want to go with the big ones. You want to really try a smaller shop.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to go to the big chain or you want to go to a little neighborhood restaurant? You know what I mean? It's a little local neighborhood round the corner FBI.
I always say assassinate local because it's better for everybody. The money stays in the area, just assassinate local.
Yes, thank you. It's like all change comes locally. We need a local, assassinate local. Don't give your money to the big organizations. Don't give your money to like, you know what I mean? The whatever, the like McDonald's, like get a local burger joint. You know what I mean? Like a local hit crew that's funded by the government.
So many believe that the assailant, so the other suspect, was a Bossi agent whom the crowd recognized as one of the killers because they had beaten and shot him. So there are many who say that 2 people were shot that day. Well, other than Malcolm X. One was Hare, and another was this second killer that somehow disappeared. Eric Norden, a reporter, reported that an olive-skinned man had been rushed into a patrol car by the cops and told to get down between the seats. Thin-lipped and wearing a turtleneck sweater, he bore an uncanny resemblance to a man who had tailed Malcolm on his trip to London through his return flight to New York 1 week before the assassination. So this seemed to be someone who had been tailing him. Tony Buzza, who plays a role in the Netflix series, is a former Bossi detective. So he's like NYPD Bossi. and NYPD lieutenant from 57 to 65. And he's amazing in the Netflix series because he basically talks about some of the things that happened, but he still is like, thinks Malcolm X should have died. Like, he's like, oh, he's a fucking thug. Should have. Yeah. Hey, listen.
And I was going to say, but this is a doc series on Netflix?
Yeah, it's called like Who Killed Malcolm X or something.
Oh, okay.
So Tony Buzza explains that the NYPD and not the FBI was the primary agency conducting surveillance of Malcolm, who was considered a dangerous man and a grave threat to public order. So then we get into a man named Ray Wood, who was said to have been seen also running out of the Autobahn. He was one of two picked up by police. He was the second person. Many believe he was the second person running out. Wood was a black NYPD officer from Chester, South Carolina, with an Air Force background. He was assigned to infiltrate a group calling itself the Black Liberation Movement. He was or BLM. He was subsequently credited with foiling a bomb plot. And I might have mentioned this on this little piece on the last one, but there'd been a foiled bomb plot to bomb the Statue of Liberty by the Black Liberation Movement. And that was foiled just a week before Malcolm X's assassination. Now, what that did was that it got two of Malcolm's key bodyguards arrested for felonies right before this happened, before his assassination. So it made sure that there was almost no security of Malcolm's at the Autobahn that day. And so he did it under the direction of the FBI, of an FBI agent, and he did most of the planning. And though he lied about this in court to comply with his supervisor's directions, the U.S. Attorney General at the time wrote a letter to NYPD Commissioner Michael Murphy with a note of special congratulations to Wood, Ray Wood, for his, quote, remarkable undercover work. In 2011, Wood admitted that he had entrapped two members of Malcolm's security team in a criminal plot to blow up the Statue of Liberty. Entrapped, meaning Wood, the infiltrator, came up with the idea, provided them like blueprints, provided them how to do it, pushed it along, and they're still doing this today.
Yeah, this sounds familiar. I'm trying to think, where have I heard this, Lee? Is this another Netflix play?
The latest one, which maybe we should do a segment on later, is it's come out that the plot to kidnap and kill the Michigan governor so remember, they arrested those guys under Trump. They were big Trump fans. They had a plan to kidnap and kill Whitmer in Michigan. And there were something like a dozen FBI informants involved in that and one FBI agent involved in that. And exactly the same thing. The FBI are the ones pushing these plans along.
Dude, and look, it's like the both things can be true thing about Malcolm, the divisions within the Nation of Islam, and then these, police organizations stirring it up. Like January 6th, we know the head of the Oath Keepers, the head of Proud Boys were FBI informants. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't armed white nationalist militias in this country that are pretty scary. Of course not. But the FBI is stirring them up. The FBI is getting these people together, and in some cases,
many of the people told to stand down that day and not call for backup and all that shit. They're all internal people.
Yes, all internal people. Like, don't call for backup. Let this happen. It's insane. And so it's like this is. I mean, I don't know.
It's an old playbook. It's a dusty playbook.
It is a dusty playbook, and I don't know what more people need, like Americans need. Like, this show is the most important show for anybody to watch or listen to, because if this doesn't wake you up to what's been going and as we always point out, what they did 50, 60, 100 years ago, they're still doing today. I mean, they're still doing either a version of it or just the exact same goddamn thing, as you just pointed out.
Yep.
It's really, this show's more important than the Mickey Mouse bullshit I do, the vigilante. I mean, that fucking
I wouldn't call it Mickey Mouse. Come on, buddy. Let's up that self-confidence.
Oh God, that little fucking monkey dancing for peanuts or whatever show that I do.
I love you insulting the fans of that show as if they're not here too.
Yeah, they're
the
just
fucking idiots. Those idiots that watch that other show.
I don't know what you guys do going over that vigilante show. That guy's a moron. I don't know what he's doing. Anyone that watches it is an idiot. Oh, my vegan gun. Shut the fuck up. Like, Jesus. Read a real thing. Nobody cares about Epstein. Shut the fuck up.
I think we just heard the voices in Graham's head.
This is why I'm always like, Graham, why do you live stream or start late? Because that's the voice in my head going, no one gives a fuck what you're saying, you idiot. Who wants to listen to your bullshit? Like, so yeah, no, I didn't grow up in an alcoholic home. Anyway, you were saying I'm sorry. What were your name again?
No, I think we need to stay on this. I think we should pick this scab a little more.
Everyone in the chat's like, Graham, we love you. You're awesome, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. Everybody send Graham a heart emoji.
But seriously, that political vigilante show, that guy is a fucking idiot. Batman themed news program. Who the fuck came up with that? Like, come on, grow up. You're a grown man wearing Batman shit everywhere. Like, come on. Like, oh, I'm a surfer. Who cares? Like, just.
You have a collared shirt on today. You're looking spiffy.
I know.
Every time you think you're not being an adult, you just look at your haircut versus mine, and you're actually adulting far better than I am.
Well, that's because I literally can't grow as much hair as yours. I really need my crypto portfolio to take off so I can buy hair plugs. That's kind of my long-term goal. That's my goal.
Where were we?
We were the FBI. You said something about the FBI or something like that. What were you talking about?
Plot to blow up the Statue of Liberty. So Ray Wood, who died in 2020, stated that his assignment was to, quote, draw the two men into a felonious federal crime. Wouldn't it be felonious? Like, anyway, a felony.
You're asking the wrong guy. I called this episode 50 for like 3 weeks in a row. I'm not the guy to talk to about spelling.
Anyway, to draw them into a felony crime so that they could be arrested by the FBI and kept away from managing Malcolm X's Audubon Ballroom door security on February 21st. So, oh no, he said that on February 21st. Anyway, so yet again, this is an NYPD officer who has admitted his job was to draw away security. If the NYPD wasn't involved in all of this, why the fuck would they care whether Malcolm's security was there or not? The only way they care is if they're involved in killing him that day.
If I was president, I would go, you know what, we're going to keep the CIA and the FBI. But you're going to actually start doing this for evil people, not people that are trying to be like, you're going to infiltrate Bezos. You know what I mean? We're going
to give him the poison scuba suit.
Yes. And when he flies his cock rocket around in another 4-minute jerk off session, so one of his dumb staff can high five him with that stupid cowboy hat. Oh my God. Slap that off his head.
That really, that put you over the edge, was the cowboy.
That was it. This is where I think we should bring back bullying. You know what I mean? Like not the kids, but I want to send some like bullies up to Silicon Valley and just be like, "Hey nerd, what are you doing with my cowboy hat?" You know,
look at me, I'm bald and I have money.
Yeah. And just take his stuff, you know, just like, what are you doing with my rocket, nerd? You know, just like bully him. How come looks like, hey nerd, looks like I'm in charge of Amazon now and everyone gets union wages, nerd. Like that's what we need. Anyway, like from Back to the Future, like Tom Wilson who played Biff, like that guy.
Send Tom Wilson in. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that kind of gets to my point a while back that, okay, if you're going to have people with that much money, which they shouldn't have, but let's at least all agree that we should shame them, that we should be disgusted by them, that we should talk about them like sociopaths, that we should throw eggs at their limos. Like, okay, you know, if you're going to say they exist, let's at least not pretend they're fucking heroes, because they're not.
Yeah. They're not. Well, this is the problem is they spend, you know, this, I mean, they spend tens of millions of dollars on these marketing campaigns. And that's why you got all the big networks just standing in line, jerking Jeff Bezos off going, he's so great. And he's doing this for science. And he's, you know, it's like,
science. Yeah. Let's, I know we've gotten regular humans up there, but could we get a billionaire into space? That's the question.
We've put 2 in the last couple of weeks.
Do sociopaths behave the same in zero gravity as other people?
Yeah. How does Branson's white-capped teeth operate in zero gravity? That weird shark tooth looking coked out freak.
What does Botox do in those kind of G-forces? Does the Botox get sucked into the brain, or how does that work?
I don't know. These are very valid tests that we need done. I'm sorry. So the FBI.
So after the shooting, Wood was attacked by the mob who suspected him in the killing. So it sounds like Ray Wood did not fire any of the shots, but he was an infiltrator, and enough of the crowd knew he was that they turned on him after the shots were fired. So he was taken away from the scene in an NYPD patrol car and put in a holding cell for 3 hours, where he realized the significance of his Statue of Liberty plot. He thought the plot he was helping against Statue of Liberty was just to get these guys arrested. But then after Malcolm X was killed, he realized he was pivotal in helping Malcolm X get killed. So he apparently at least claims he didn't know that beforehand. Now this is where we really get into JFK territory. Other suspicious deaths. Like with the Kennedy assassination, Malcolm's assassination resulted in many suspicious deaths. One was of Louis Lomax, an African-American journalist who befriended Malcolm X in the late 1950s and claimed to have solved the riddle of the assassination. On July 31st, 1970, Lomax died in an auto accident in New Mexico. At the time, he had a contract with 20th Century Fox to make a movie about Malcolm that would expose the U.S. intelligence community's role in his assassination. The brakes on his car failed, and Lomax skidded across a highway and died.
What year was this again?
70. The good old brakes cut on the car.
Oh, that old chestnut, the old squeaky brake. Oh man, this sounds, I mean, this is like, wow. Clinton death before the Clintons were in power. I mean, this is really,
Lomax believed that Malcolm X was betrayed by a former friend thought to be John Ali, who reportedly had ties to the intelligence community. Lomax called the suspect Judas. The second suspicious death was Leon Amir, Malcolm's New England representative and Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali's former secretary, who had vowed to carry on Malcolm's work after his assassination. He was found unconscious in a bathtub at Boston's Sherry Biltmore Hotel in March of 1965, hours after he had appeared at the Socialist Workers meeting in Boston. In a speech there, he said that the government was responsible for Malcolm's death and that he would shortly produce tapes and documents of Malcolm's to prove it. Amir stated in his speech that he had, quote, facts in my possession as to who really killed Malcolm X, and that, quote, this is probably the last time you'll see me alive.
Damn. It's like, wow. That's part, I mean, it's to a smaller scale than the JFK thing, but again, it's the same thing of like all these mysterious deaths. And I mean, it's just so shrouded, and it's not a conspiracy that has a connotation of fabrication or fantasy or, you know, fictionalized versions or something like that. It is just, again, it's the same playbook. It's the same playbook that they keep using over and over. And they really perfected it now. I mean, now they don't do a lot of, we've talked about this. They don't do a lot of like bullet, you know, shooting assassinations like back in the 60s. Now it's just character assassinations. And they don't even let anybody get close.
No, and that's what made Epstein so crazy is he was one of the first in a while that was just straight up like, oh yeah, he killed himself.
Oh yeah, that was at first like so blatantly, but he was like middle management, so they were like, oh, he's going to talk too much. So, and you're right. It's the first one. The Epstein one is the first time where they did one of these in broad daylight and made everybody.
They got desperate because he was in police custody, and they were like, we better get him now while we have a chance.
Yeah, and then let's keep, you know, quietly sweeping up. There's been no trial. There's been all that stuff they pulled out of his penthouse, the hard drives, the photo. We've seen none of that. Little glimpses of his black book. We've seen none of that. Maybe we'll see it during Ghislaine Maxwell's trial in November. Doubtful, but
right.
Yeah, you're right. That's the most recent. I can't think of another one where they did the assassination. It's just like, you know, Bernie Sanders just quitting this past. He just quit. He just stopped. And it's like, my guess is they just threatened him. Like they threatened to kill his grandkids or something like that. And he just went, okay. Or whatever it is now that they do, or they just groom people that they know are going to be complicit. Like it really seems like AOC was groomed to get into this spot and rally people around her so that when she's actually in a position of power, because she hasn't used the power that she actually has. You have 12 million Twitter followers. You could literally change laws. You could force the vote. You could do a general strike.
She hasn't used it, and she's basically switched on almost all foreign policy. You know, nothing on Venezuela, like nothing on so many countries as the U.S. just obliterates them. And it's like, what happened to you? And it's clear that she either just is told in the back room, look, you can be president, but you got to stop talking about A, B, and C, or she was groomed from the beginning, but.
Yeah. Either way, they said that's what they do now. Cause that's why nobody gets close. That's why Kucinich never got close. Bernie, I don't know, maybe he was a sheep herder, maybe not.
Funny you bring up Kucinich. I just had him on Redacted this week. People can get that at radindymedia.com, but I hadn't realized this. So when he was mayor of Cleveland in the 70s, I believe, or late 60s, 70s. He was like 30 years old. He was like a baby mayor. But he was going up against the big corporate power companies. And this was a time in Cleveland's history where people were getting mob bosses and things were getting assassinated all the time. They called it Bomb City at the time. And he had a bullet hit inches from his head one time. And he had other assassination plots that the police, who were, it seems, fairly legitimately protecting him, got wind of and were able to stop. But yeah, he had multiple assassination attempts on him.
Yep. And that's why they were like, yeah. And they probably reminded him of that when he was running for president. They're like, you can say whatever you want during the debates, but if you get close, that next bullet ain't going to go over your head. It's going through it. So good luck, you know?
Right.
See you on the campaign trail, Dennis, you know, just.
So, that's pretty much it. The final thing is Malcolm's supporters appear to have had it right that he was murdered on the orders of the U.S. government. Precisely who gave those orders, however, remains unknown. In February 2021, so just this year, New York County District Attorney Cyrus Vance reopened the case in order to determine if the wrong men were convicted. So now here's the thing. I think some people may have too much excitement for that, oh, we're finally going to get to the bottom of this. I think what the New York attorneys district attorney may ultimately come up with is that two of those men were innocent. They weren't even there that day. But I don't think he's going to get into all the extra stuff that happened. I think it's going to stop with, these two men were innocent.
Yeah. And it'll be something that, like, you know, Democrats who control New York City will say, you know, this miscarriage of justice is we finally righted these wrongs. These guys were wrongfully convicted. Yay, Democrats, diversity, rainbow flag, we did it. And someone like us will be in the back, well, actually, who did it? And didn't the cops help kill him? Thank you guys so much for coming. We really appreciate it.
I can't hear. The air conditioning is pretty loud in here. I couldn't hear any questions. Thank you for coming. It's good day. Okay, see you later.
Yeah, or if it's like one of those like Skyped in interviews, the reporter will just go, or the FBI, whatever, Blasio or whatever fucking shithead will be saying, we did it. Justice has been served, and they'll ask a question. He'll just go,
something's wrong with my mic.
Like or he'll just like freeze up. Like, so anyway, well, we'd like to.
He has to hold the pose while he's dying to blink, and he's just trying to hold the pose.
Just long enough for them to go, oh, I think we're having technical difficulties. All right, guys, well, we'll get back to that interview.
He's been rehearsing the freeze for every press conference.
and then like do like, so that's why we, and if I ever get interviewed by some corporate media outlet, I'm going to do that to see if they catch it, just to have fun to do it.
He seems to be frozen, but he's blinking. What does that mean?
He's blinking. Is that Morse code that he's blinking? What is he blinking?
But so yes, there are multiple things in the Malcolm X assassination that prove that the NYPD was involved. They had to be involved. They may have been the lowest level of involvement you could possibly even try and believe is that they knew the Nation of Islam wanted to kill him. They were helping make that happen. They had informants within the Nation of Islam that was trying to do it. And they, with the Nation of Islam, their informants in there, basically helped coordinate it. Like, that's maybe the least involvement you could come up with.
That's the most basic, the least corrupt version of NYPD.
Right. That's the good version.
Right. That's that's the nice lollipop version of like, we knew they were going to kill him and we got out of the way is the best case scenario that they could pitch. Probably though they were like, no, we're going to help you do it.
And we got out of the way and didn't investigate anything and left the podium in the basement for 40 years and arrested two patsies and
and did nothing. Like literally, like my niece, when she was like 10 or 12 or something like that, went to like a CSI camp. Like the kids in that CSI camp could have done more at that with that podium after 40 years than what NYPD did right after the crime. Like,
oh my God. I bet you at CSI camp, they teach them all the forensics is real, even though it's all bullshit. Like 80%. I want to do more episodes on that. Like 80% of forensics is garbage. But,
really?
Like tooth bite analysis, I think I've covered on the show before, is completely fake. Like lie detectors are utter horse shit. Fingerprints, yes, are reliable, but they kind of have to be like perfectly done. Like you have to get like a perfect blood-soaked fingerprint. And even with that, no one has ever actually proved that no one has the same fingerprints. There actually is not. It seems likely, but there's not actual evidence that there's not identical fingerprints on someone else. It's just something we're told.
Man, I wanted to go to CSI camp.
Oh man, I just crushed your dreams.
Oh, I was going to do that for my birthday next week. Now I got to cancel it. Way to go, buddy. Crushed my birthday plans.
I mean, you could go and just pretend that it's. Yeah, it's great. It's just, I never mind, Grant. I don't like seeing your heartbroken. It's just like in CSI, the TV show. They just take everything and they feed it into a computer, and you see a bunch of blue dots skitter around, and then it goes boop, 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 and then it says the killer is George.
Got him.
And
that's
you go,
what I want.
George.
I just want beep, boop, 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 boop. Got him. That's all I want in this life. Is just a couple of C-3POs and then a guilty guy. All right. Well, we got time. We got time for my little Gov't Seek. Are you pressed for time here?
I'm a little pressed for time. Either we can cram it in, or if you want more time, let's just we could put it to next week. But up to you.
Well, let's put it in. This one kind of went long bonus, and we went into a lot of stuff. We'll do it next week
because I don't want to rush you. I'm serious. I don't want you to have to like, fly through yours.
Yeah, I mean, look, this episode we talked about the Cubs trades. I mean, we covered a lot of serious stuff.
I think look, government secrets number 1 was the Olympics. Government secrets number 2 was Graham's very mad at some of the people tweeting at him. Government secrets number 3 is Malcolm X assassination. Government secrets number 4 is something about a Batman themed show. I couldn't quite catch it all, but
Graham ridiculing his own show. That was the other government secret. Graham secretly hates himself in his show. We learned that from the FBI. No, I don't hate myself. I don't hate my show. I love it. Everything's great, Lee. Everything.
Guys, send those heart emojis Graham's way. Send them. He needs them right now.
I think next week we need to take off because I'm going on vacation literally for my birthday. So I'm going to be gone.
Happy birthday.
Thanks, man. I'm turning 78.
No way. You look so good.
Thank you so much. That's Todd. That's Todd Glass's joke. He always says that. I always say I'm way older and be, well, wow, you look amazing. Yeah. So we'll do this in two Fridays from now, or what's your schedule like?
Probably. We'll figure it out. I got some shit coming up as well. It might be a different day, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we could do Monday the 9th or whatever. All right, we'll figure it out. All right, yeah, that's government secrets wrap up. So Lee Camp, where can people see all of your wonderful dealings?
So everybody should check out radindiemedia.com, INDIE, Rad Indie Media. New thing I just launched. It's got pretty much all the cool media is over there, and it takes you straight to their sites. It's not trying to grab any of their clicks or views or anything. It takes you straight there. So check that out. But and then the Kucinich interview is over there where he talks about assassination attempts and other things. He's running for mayor again, by the way. If he wins, he will have been the youngest and oldest mayor of Cleveland. And then, New Redacted tonight comes out tonight. That'll be at leecamp.com, or later it'll be on Rad Indie Media, and my Twitter's at Lee Camp. Yeah, and check out if you're new to Government Secrets, check out the previous episodes. They're pretty much all evergreen. It's like a history course on what you're not taught in history. So go check it out.
We'll talk about some current event stuff that just happened, but we always relate it back to the history of this country's evil secrets. So this is a history podcast, and it's really it's like every week I learn something new, and I'm sure you do too. Of like, wow, I didn't know that too, and which is good for me to learn.
Because if you don't learn, you end up appearing multiple times on Countdown with Keith Olbermann. So you got to learn. You got to learn, because you don't want more than one of those mugs. You do not want to steal more than one of those mugs. You don't want people to come over and see like 4 or 5 MSNBC mugs or whatever. That would be bad news. No, that proves, next to the Rachel Maddow mugs and the Bill Maher mugs, then you're in trouble. That's bad. Anderson Cooper autograph Wolf Blitzer plate. You don't want those things. People can see that stuff. No, you don't. You know what, folks, go to grahamelwood.com for not only my live Government Secrets with Lee on September 18th, but all my tour dates with Ron Placone starting September 11th. We're hitting the West Coast and all through the Midwest and the East and the South, and it's pretty awesome. So check that out. And of course, the Anything Can Happen game show, we're doing that, and we're working to make that into a bigger thing. That's going to be bigger. So go to grahamelwood.com and
Yeah, support the show. Go to rockman.com/Graham Elwood, where you can get my premium content, Lee's, and everybody else that's on the platform. It's blockchain, it's cryptocurrency. I'm still demonetized by YouTube, which is fun. And then I'm yelled at because I want to be safe when I go on the road to make money. So it's been a blast. It's been a fun fucking time. So yeah, that's it. That's our show, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks a lot, man. Good hang.
All right, buddy. We'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Later.